Hello, everybody. I'm Berl Schwartz, editor and publisher of City Pulse, and it was in 2008 when I did a Welcome to Lansing interview with the gentleman I'm going to be talking to today, a mere 12 years ago. That was on our radio show. And here we are in 2020 for an exit interview with the sixth president of Lansing Community College, Dr. Brent Knight. Dr. Knight, thanks so much for joining me.
It's good to be with you, Berl.
Thank you. So, I didn't really realize, I guess, or remember how young you were when you became a president for the first time, Triton College. You were just 29.
Yeah.
Hard. I mean, how does it feel now looking back on all these years as you prepare to step down?
Well, I'm 73, and I think we're similar in age.
We're the same age.
And I'll be, Lord willing, I'll be 74 in the fall, and that just seems, I just don't want to be working when I'm 74. So that was kind of my number. Now, it could have been some other year, but that's the year I picked.
No kidding. And you have pretty good genes, as I recall. How is your mother doing?
Well, my mother passed away at 104.
Wow.
And she was in good health at 103. In fact, I took her to lunch, and we waltzed right down the sidewalk for her 103rd birthday lunch. And her only other sibling, my uncle, he passed away at 100. So that side of the family has great longevity.
Yeah. Well, do you take after that side?
I hope so.
I hope so too. I want to talk to you more a little later about what you're going to do for the next act. But we're at such a difficult time. I actually wondered, are you happy to be getting out now, or do you feel like, oh man, I'm kind of abandoning things?
Well, yeah, that's a good point. It is a very difficult time, and it's unprecedented. Although somehow in February, I read the book about the 1918 pandemic. It's a great book, by the way. And when I read it, I understood it all, but somehow I thought, oh, that's unlikely to happen again. But I had the proof right in front of me about how the whole thing worked. And it's come to pass. This is stunning.
Yeah. Obviously, LCC is going to have classes, but online this summer.
Yes.
And what's the thinking for the fall?
Well, that's a great question, and one that all colleges, or almost all colleges and universities across the nation, and I trust around the world, are facing. And everyone wants to go to face-to-face. They just wish to go to face-to-face. It's just a constant request from everybody, faculty and students, and looking for every opportunity to do face-to-face. I'm on a webinar tomorrow. I'm on the board of directors of the American Association of Community Colleges. And so the topic tomorrow is all about how to resume. Well, I was on a conference call on Monday, a national conference call, and I said, you have to start with death. As grim as it is, that's your starting point, because if you resume face-to-face and a faculty member contacts the virus at your college and passes away, I mean, you have to think about that. And a student or a staff member or a member of their family. So before you're comfortable with resuming face-to-face, you have to make sure that all of your ducks are in order. And for example, that you've followed all of the OSHA recommendations in full, because if someone passes away, that will quickly become an issue.
So, of course, the first thing is we don't want to put anybody at unnecessary risk, but you're talking, I gather, about liability.
Well, yeah, that's a part of it. Sure, and you have to make sure that your insurances are in good order too. But you have to live with that for the rest of your life. That you're the president, you made that call, and someone passed away.
So this is first and foremost about human life.
Yeah, it's a matter of life and death, and that's how I look at it. So colleges are becoming increasingly creative. I know of one case where you can have a traditional Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and a third of the students are in attendance on Monday, another third on Wednesday, and yet another third on Friday, or the same thing with Tuesday, Thursday, where half are there Tuesday and half are there Thursday. Okay, well, you still have to be comfortable with people being in proximity and face-to-face. And if you take temperature, you do a thermal image when people walk in the door, 1/3 of the people are asymptomatic. So that's helpful. And of course, you can wipe down surfaces, and there's an electrostatic disinfectant that you can spray, and take all of those precautions. And I'm in favor of everyone wearing a mask. I wear a mask. I went to the grocery store last night and comfortable wearing a mask. I think everyone should do that. But right now, there really is not a means of testing. The last time I heard testing was $100 per test. Okay, well, we would have hundreds and hundreds of people coming in and out of our doors, and that's not practical yet. If it becomes practical, then you could test, and then you could feel far more comfortable with resuming face-to-face.
And of course, that not only depends on cost, but there's concern about the high rate of false negatives and false positives with that.
Right.
So it's a complicated issue. When will a decision have to be made about the fall semester?
Well,
after you leave?
Well, no, we're working on it, and we have multiple contingency plans. I mean, first you want to look at the infection rates and hospitalizations, and for today's purposes, no, we cannot resume face-to-face. So we have to see a considerable reduction in the infection rate, and for hospitals to go back to normal. And I'd like to see an effective medication, a pharmaceutical that works. And so we're not ready to go back to face-to-face, but we're planning for it. There are notions where you would start online and then convert to face-to-face during the fall term. That's a possibility. And there's another model that I like. I'll call it the Rice University model there in Houston. And they're setting it up so that you could be in attendance, but if you're not, then you can view it streaming or on your device. So I like that one because if you started face-to-face, let us say, and then the virus flared up, you could quickly go back to streaming. And so you can toggle, they call it toggling, to go back and forth between face-to-face and streaming or online.
As candidates to replace you are being interviewed, and it's been winnowed down now to 4 of them, is the pandemic an issue that is they're being asked about?
Yes, their interviews are taking place this week for the whole college. And so their people have written in questions, and maybe that constitutes 20% of the questions. So it's a big topic, but with that said, selecting a president, I've been here 12 years. So selecting a president hopefully is a long-term hire. And so you have to put it in the context of this person could be here a long time. And you'd like that.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about the longevity in terms of other presidents, just as an aside here, but how do you rank? The founding president was president forever, right?
Oh yeah, Philip Gannon was the founding president, 1957, when it was under the Lansing Board of Education. And Philip was president, I think, in 1990 or into the 90s. So his longevity record will be difficult to break.
But are you number two?
I think so.
Yeah. Well, my condolences. I want to talk to you about what you feel has been accomplished by LCC under your leadership. What are some of the highlights for you?
Well, I first want to begin with the story that when I began, I had just come to Lansing and I went to a dinner with David Hollister and Deborah Kanja. And so David was kind and offering his advice and helping me to understand the community, and I was most appreciative. But he said to me, and he said it very diplomatically, that if you don't get that college fixed, you won't be president in 6 months. So that was how I started. And I mean, the college was in quite a struggle. And the college was in the news nonstop, not good.
Right.
And the financial situation was such that you couldn't do an audit. It was unauditable. And there had been issues with financial aid and the awarding of financial aid. There was considerable strife among and between board members. So that was the circumstance that was present when I came to Lansing. It didn't, I mean, yeah, it was difficult, but it didn't really, I was not surprised because I had read the media too, but it was formidable, and I thought it was worthwhile. I thought it was a worthwhile job, because the Lansing Community College is fundamentally a fine college, and we just had to straighten some things out, and things would go back to normal, and that's what happened.
And you arrived at the beginning of what became known as the Great Recession. How did that complicate things?
Yeah, that too. So historically, and I mean, and like you, I read several books a month. Not that that's a big deal, and they're usually history, political science, that kind of thing. Well, I was well aware of the Great Depression. And so when the stock market just tanked, I thought, wow, this is pretty incredible. And so I sent out, and I was new here. I'd been here 6 months. And so I thought, well, gee, this is remarkable. This is historic. And I sent out an email to the whole college about the historical significance of what was happening. But people didn't understand it that way. They thought that I was engaged in collective bargaining. And I was trying to say that, gee, we don't have any money and you can expect less. And I really wasn't. I was trying to discuss it in terms of how significant it was. So there was a lesson there, but I couldn't help myself because it was just, wow, this is incredible.
And now you've, of course, benefited from good financial times, and yet you're going to leave in a situation a lot closer to what you arrived in. But you leave the school, I'm sure, in far better straits, if only for straightening out the books.
Yeah, we've gone to getting recognition for our budget transparency and our excellent audits, and so all of that, we fixed that in the first couple of years that I was here. But this pandemic is going to cause difficulty for almost all of American higher education. I mean, excepting the very wealthy and prestigious universities, everyone else. I mean, the Big Ten, I don't know if you saw where the University of Michigan, the president wrote a letter to the faculty and staff maybe 10 days ago, outlining how they were going to cut their budget and reduce spending at the University of Michigan. And so that tells you if the University of Michigan is cutting spending and reducing the workforce, that probably almost all the Big Ten will follow.
And we've seen already perhaps symbolic cuts at Michigan State, but the president cut his salary and I think extended that to top leadership.
Yeah, it'll go much further.
Yeah.
You'll see that across all of higher ed.
Now, I believe Michigan State University, Harvard, and a couple of dozen others are being sued by students because they feel they're not getting their money's worth. What do you say to students about that situation?
Well, they make a good point. Especially in residential universities, especially, you're paying for much more than just the classroom instruction. I mean, universities just are a great place to be and a great experience, but being present on the campus and taking part in all of that is part of what's being great about a college student. In community colleges, our tuition is much less, and we're an all commuter school. And I've tried to enable students to want to be here. And if you remember, we used to charge by the hour for parking. And we changed that because I wanted students to come here and stay and enjoy each other's company and go to the library and go to our tutoring services and all of the other activities that we offer. But we, with all that said, we have a fraction of the student life that you'd find at Michigan State University or the University of Michigan.
Do you have any sense yet of what enrollment will be like in the fall?
Well, obviously we don't know. We think that summer enrollment may be down 10%. Fall enrollment, since you don't know, you look at 20% decline in the fall. And then at the same time, there's a conversation about the state of Michigan and how the state of Michigan will struggle financially, and that will mean probably less money for public colleges and universities.
What are your options as far as expenses? Do you think LCC will have to resort to layoffs? Can you do across the board cuts with unions, et cetera?
Well, colleges and universities, the largest expenditure is personnel, salary and benefits. I mean, that's just how it works. So that's your biggest expenditure. So yes, you can cut other things, and we certainly will. We stopped all projects that we could stop. We're not starting any others. We're in the middle of the library remodel, going from books to more digital, and we'll complete that project by the end of the calendar year. But we've stopped all other projects. So we have a duty, I have a duty to the Board of Trustees, and I'll go back to something that I learned at home, probably from my mother. depression slaying a day's work for a day's pay. And we have a duty. We have many people who function in a face-to-face world with students and others. Well, we don't have face-to-face. So yes, we've converted people to doing other things, but you can only go so far. And so at some point, yes, that will be a part of our planning.
In the little time we have left, I want to talk more about your legacy. I live in LCC land, as you know. I have a parking lot belonging to LCC outside my back door. I have one across the street. A block away is Dart Auditorium, and my dog and I often walk, and we clean up, by the way.
I'm glad you do. I'm glad you come to the campus. I see you from time to time.
Yes. The campus has just changed enormously, and it's far nicer than it was. Was that part of your vision when you came in?
In a sense, I had been chairman of the board of the Frederick Meyer Garden in the 2 years before the garden opened. And so anyone who read my resume, you could probably say, gee, this guy probably likes trees and plants. And well, yes, of course I do. And so we planted an urban forest here, 150 trees during my time here, and they'll outlast me. But it'll be great for the community. It all started early in my time here. I went to a meeting, and people were lamenting about the Saginaw corridor. Saginaw, it was not appealing. So that was what the meeting was about. So I left the meeting and I kind of said, well, I can't fix the whole Saginaw corridor, but I can work on the Lansing Community College frontage, and we have. Mm-hmm. We've done very well with our Saginaw frontage, and I'm proud of that. And I think it makes for a better community.
You stepped in it a bit with preservationists when you bought and tore down 3 residences on the north end of Capitol. And,
yes, I did.
And you beautified that corner. And I think anyone, including people who were opposed to those houses being torn down, would acknowledge it looks great. And among other things, you could really appreciate the Moore Foster house building, insurance building, because of it. And we're going to disagree, I think, in a moment. But I wanted to ask you what, along those lines, you've introduced a lot of art on campus, sculpture, inside and outside. Anything, and you've done some great restoration. You took quite a bit of heat for the cost of fixing up the president's house, but you've done some great preservation. What dreams did you have that you couldn't fulfill?
Oh, well,
needs to be gone by your successor.
Yeah, well, getting back to the corner of Saginaw and Capitol, see, I saw those structures as urban blight. And I had a dream for that corner, and others coined it a pocket park. Well, that was my dream all along. I thought, gee, if we could do this, it would cut down on what I'll call urban blight, and it would be attractive, and it would last for countless years. So that was what I was trying to do, but others saw it differently, and I understand that. Today I was walking down Capitol and I went by Dart. So you asked me a good question. See, Dart has no lobby. There isn't any. When you walk in, you're there.
Right.
and the entrance to this great auditorium theater space, you just go through a set of double doors. I mean, it doesn't visually tell you, gee, you're about to enter a large space. It doesn't tell you anything. So I had a great plan to fix that, to have a lobby, and it would look great from Capitol. I would have some glass, and you could do if you had a program like with the speaker, you could meet with the speaker after. There'd be a space there for a gathering. So that was a great dream, and I had it well along. But the moment the pandemic hit, that was the end of that. So I will have come and gone without having fixed that problem. I wish I could have, but it didn't turn out.
Well, maybe you can still help, and maybe someday it'll be the Brent Knight Auditorium.
Well, I think you're very kind, but I was just trying to fix a problem.
Well, the one we might disagree on, I'm sure we probably do disagree on, is the parking ramp that LCC is going to build on Capitol next to an apartment building that was just renovated. I look out my front door and down Seymour, and I can see all the way to that apartment building now. It seems, frankly, surprising to me that you would want a parking ramp in a central location on our main avenue, one of the two main avenues, Capitol Avenue, to be part of your legacy. But what's your thinking there?
Well, see, if things go as planned, there'll be a new president of LCC. We're thinking July 1st, but I mean, however it turns out, but thereabouts. But by Labor Day, I could surely answer that question in full because I won't be president anymore.
Yeah.
But let me see, how can I do this? You know, as you know, I know about just about every lineal foot of frontage on this campus. I walk it all the time. I ride
in your
my golf cart, on my bicycle. I walk, and I've had the privilege of. I usually watch the evening news, and when it's over at 7 o'clock, I take my walk around the whole campus, and that's been. I mean, it's been a privilege to have been president here. I mean that sincerely, and I'll miss that, and I'll miss watching every tree, and then I have a little list, you know, that I go back and email to my buildings and grounds folks who do a great job that something needs to be fixed there. And I also have my own pruning shears, Berl, that I walk around with, and I'm not complaining because I enjoy that. And so I'm very mindful of all that. If I took you on a walk, I'd show you the Gannon ramp. And it was built, of course, when Philip Gannon was here. And it's at the end of its useful life. And it needs to be demolished and replaced. I mean, those parking structures from that era, they have steel rebar in them, and there's a whole lot of salt that's used in the winter, and the moisture kind of corrodes the concrete. It gets at the rebar, and then it expands, and then it's just a deterioration. So it's to be expected that that ramp needs to be demolished. So, okay, well, what do? Well, if you were in my office on a typical day like today, I'd open my blinds and show you how the Gannon ramp was full of cars. You know, 9 in the morning, 10 in the morning, noon, it's full. So, okay, so what are you gonna do? You gotta tear it down, and what do you do? What do you do for the 2 years between the start of demolition and a new ramp being done? And I mean, I had been over on the other side of the river there where Bonnie's Bar was. Okay, could we park cars there? Could we lease property there? Could we shuttle employees across the river during this 2-year span? And so it's been studied from every point of view. And I also confess that I'm especially anxious about what will vehicles be like in 20 years? Because, I mean, will people Uber? How will people, will they own cars? I mean, if you read it, you suggest that no, they won't own cars. But then again, we have many people who don't live in the city, and they're in more of a suburban and rural environment. So how are they going to get to the college? I don't know. And also students, when I was in college, I had a $100 car. And I was real happy with the car because it got me from one place to another. And so students typically use older vehicles. So they're not going to be coming in the latest and greatest self-driving for quite a while. I mean, you can go buy a new car today and it can have some great automated features, but it's not going to drive itself. So I'm anxious about all that. The pandemic has caused us to revisit all of that. And I think that's a good thing. So stand by. I was in a Zoom meeting today about that issue, and we're continuing to work at it. But I think
work at the issue of whether to build
what to do. But I think in the end that, knowing you, I'm hopeful you'll think well of the plan.
Okay.
I'll leave it. How's that?
Well, if you give it to me first, I probably will. Let's close by asking you, are you going to honor Lansing by staying here, or do you have plans elsewhere?
Well, my wife is from Louisiana, and so she has not been fond of winter.
Yeah.
So I'm going to honor all of that. And
reminder, there are no hurricanes here.
That's true. And there's that saying that a bad snowstorm, well, you don't lose your house.
Right. Well, Dr. Knight, before we go, I want to say what a pleasure it has been getting to know you over the years. I remember our very first interview, and I remember when I asked you, so what do you think of Lansing? And you said, where are the trees? And I had no idea what was under that statement. But I know of no one who does not respect you, and there are very few people who don't like you. You've had to make some decisions, so you've had to make some enemies, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But thank you for your service to this community, and the very best wishes to you.
Well, thank you. It's been a privilege, and I'll miss the college and the community very much. And I appreciate all your coverage over the years.
Thank you. And thank everyone for watching. I'm Berl Schwartz from City Pulse.